My mother smiled when she told me I could either pay for my sister's wedding or leave the family forever. She said it in the dining room of my parents' house in Asheville, North Carolina, with 32 relatives watching over plates of maple-glazed ham and cold cranberry salad. The chandelier above us buzzed faintly, the old furnace clicked behind the wall, and the room smelled like cinnamon candles, spilled champagne, and the lemon polish my mother used whenever she wanted the house to look richer than it was. My father stood beside her, with one hand on the back of his chair, wearing the gray cashmere sweater I bought him 2 Christmases earlier. Nobody looked surprised. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 31 years old that December, and I worked as a forensic accounting analyst for an insurance carrier that specialized in commercial fraud. My entire job was reading the things people hoped no one would read: wire confirmations, amended invoices, vendor ledgers, tax forms, routing numbers, altered signatures, timestamps, IP addresses, and the tiny mathematical mistakes people make when they lie quickly. I noticed missing decimals before I noticed new haircuts. That skill saved me. My sister Madison stood near the fireplace in an ivory sweater dress, one hand pressed to her chest like the moment was already being filmed for a documentary about her happiness. Her fiancé, Evan Whitmore, stood behind her with a careful smile, the kind men wear when they are not sure whether they have joined a family or purchased a hostage contract. On the side table, a wedding mood board leaned against a vase of white roses. Mountain estate, candlelit reception, imported peonies, custom monogram napkins, string quartet, private lake ceremony. At the bottom, in gold marker, someone had written $93,700. My mother tapped her champagne flute with a butter knife and announced that everyone had discussed it, everyone had prayed over it, and everyone had agreed that Madison deserved one perfect day. Then she turned, not to the room, not to my father, not to Evan's parents, but directly to me. "Claire," she said, sweet as syrup poured over broken glass, "your contribution will be $93,700. I laughed once because I thought it had to be a joke. Nobody laughed with me. My father cleared his throat and said, "Every person at this table understands what family means. You owe your sister this." The fork in my hand slipped and hit the hardwood floor with a bright little clatter. Madison covered her mouth, but I saw the smile behind her fingers, the tiny flash of victory she had never learned to hide. Aunt Denise lowered her eyes. Cousin Paul checked his phone. My mother walked closer until her perfume, gardenia and something powdery, filled my lungs. "Pay for your sister's wedding," she whispered loudly enough for the room to hear, "or you are dead to this family." I stared at her lipstick, at the careful blush on her cheeks, at the pearl earrings my grandmother had once promised would be mine. For a second, the room stretched thin around me. I could hear the ice cracking in someone's glass, the furnace ticking again, Madison's little inhale as she prepared to cry if I made her. Then my mother said the sentence that finally broke the spell. "After everything we sacrificed by keeping you, this is the least you can do." Keeping me. Not raising me. Not loving me. Keeping me. All at once, my childhood reorganized itself inside my head with the cold precision of a spreadsheet sorting by date. Madison got writing lessons. I got told gratitude built character. Madison got a sweet 16 party at the Grove Park Ballroom. I got asked to serve punch because the caterer was short-staffed. Madison failed algebra and received a tutor. I brought home straight A's and was told not to make my sister feel stupid. Every imbalance had been dressed up as peace. Every theft had been called family. My father pointed toward my chair. "Sit down, Claire. Don't make this dramatic." I picked up my coat instead. My mother grabbed my sleeve. "You walk out that door, don't come crawling back." I looked down at her hand until she released me. My voice shook inside my chest, but when it came out, it was calm. "I'm not crawling anywhere." Madison gasped like I had slapped her. My father muttered my name in the warning tone he had used since I was 9. The relatives stared at their plates, suddenly fascinated by ham and green beans, because it is easier to watch cruelty than to interrupt it. So I left. Outside, freezing rain glazed the driveway, and the smell of wet pine came down from the mountains. My phone started lighting up before I reached my car. Mom, Dad, Madison, unknown, Aunt Denise, Dad again, Madison again. I put it face down on the passenger seat and drove back to my apartment in West Asheville with no music on, listening only to the wipers scraping ice across the windshield. By the time I got home, there were 23 missed calls. I locked the door, took off my shoes, and sat on the kitchen floor because my knees did not trust me. The apartment smelled like stale coffee, and the peppermint candle I had forgotten to blow out that morning. Rain tapped against the fire escape. My phone vibrated against the tile like an insect trapped under glass. Then I saw the red metal box under my narrow bookshelf. My grandmother had given it to me when I was 17, 6 months before she died. We had been standing outside my parents' house after Madison's pageant reception, where Madison had received a diamond bracelet, and I had been told to help load trash bags into my father's truck. Grandma Ruth pressed a brass key into my palm and said, "One day, Claire, you will need proof that your memory is not the problem." I never opened it. That night, I did. The lock stuck at first, then clicked open with a sound so small it felt like permission. Inside were envelopes, photographs, birthday cards, bank statements, copies of checks, school letters, and a note in my grandmother's careful handwriting. The first photo showed Madison at 8 years old, standing on a chair while everyone sang happy birthday. In the background, I was carrying a stack of paper plates taller than my head. On the back, Grandma had written, "Claire cleaned the party. Elaine said Madison should feel special." The next envelope held report cards. Madison's had comments about missing assignments. Mine had straight A's and a recommendation for a summer writing program at Duke. Stapled to the letter was a yellow sticky note in my mother's handwriting. "Too expensive. Madison's camp first." I remembered that summer. Madison quit dance camp after 4 days, cried for a new bedroom set, and got both. I spent July babysitting neighbors' kids and telling myself writing was just a hobby anyway. Then I found the bank statement. Claire Bennett Education Trust. Balance, $41,280. Deposits from Ruth Bennett. Withdrawals over 3 years. $9,600. $7,250. $14,800. $5,300. Beside each withdrawal, in my father's blocky handwriting, were notes. Madison car, Madison coaching, Madison wardrobe, engagement reserve. My stomach went cold. This was not favoritism. Favoritism was bigger gifts and softer rules. This was theft with a Christmas tablecloth thrown over it. At the bottom of the box was Grandma Ruth's note. Claire, if you are reading this, they have finally asked too much. Your mother will tell you love means sacrifice, but in that house, sacrifice has always meant Claire pays and Madison smiles. I tried to protect what I left you. I kept copies. Do not let them turn your kindness into a contract. I read the last sentence until the letters blurred. At 1:17 a.m., Madison texted, "Mom is crying. You're embarrassing everyone. Just say yes so we can move on. Not, are you okay? Just say yes. Move on." By morning, my phone had died from the calls. When I plugged it in, it woke up like a machine gun. 49 missed calls, 14 voicemails, a family group chat full of people I barely knew telling me my mother was devastated, my sister was fragile, and money meant nothing compared to blood. My father left one voicemail that began with a controlled voice and ended with him shouting, "This family does not negotiate with disrespect." I played it twice. Fear had sounded like authority for most of my life. Now it just sounded loud. At 9:06 a.m., I scanned every document from Grandma's box at the FedEx on Patton Avenue. The air smelled like toner and cardboard, and the copy machine made a warm mechanical hum that steadied me. I saved the files to 2 encrypted drives, uploaded them to a private cloud folder, and emailed them to myself with the subject line, "Ruth Bennett Evidence Set 01." Then I called an attorney. Her name was Nora Phelps. She had an office above a title company downtown, with old pine floors, a view of Lexington Avenue, and a waiting room that smelled like black coffee and winter coats. She wore no jewelry except a plain silver watch, and she listened without interrupting while I explained the wedding demand, the education account, the red box, and my mother's word. Keeping. When I finished, Nora placed both hands on the table. You are not legally obligated to pay for your sister's wedding. I know that part, I said. Her eyes sharpened. Good. Then let's talk about the part you don't know. She reviewed the bank statements first, then the note, then the copies of checks. With each page, her expression grew flatter. I recognized that look from my own work. It was the moment emotion left the room because the numbers had started talking. Who handled your grandmother's estate? She asked. My mother. Nora's pen stopped moving. I almost laughed. That bad? Predictable, she said. Not the same thing as good. She asked whether Grandma had owned property. I told her about the lake house near Lake Lure, a small cedar place with green shutters, a dock that creaked in the wind, and a kitchen that always smelled like coffee and peach jam. My mother had told me years ago that it was sold to pay medical bills. Madison's wedding board, however, had shown sunset photos by that same water. Nora leaned back. Did you ever see sale documents? No. Did your grandmother ever say anything about leaving it to someone? I thought about Grandma's hand closing around mine, proof that your memory is not the problem. She said I would need the truth. Nora wrote that down. Before I left, she gave me 3 instructions. Do not answer calls. Save every message. Find out quietly whether any wedding vendors believe I am paying. She said people who feel entitled to your money usually leave fingerprints while reaching for it. She was right. 2 days later, an email arrived from Laurel Ridge Estates congratulating me on my role as primary family sponsor for the Whitmore Bennett wedding experience. I stared at the phrase for a long time. Wedding experience, like they were not planning a marriage, but a luxury hostage exchange with flowers. I called the coordinator and kept my voice polite. The venue had no signed contract from me, but my mother had listed me as the responsible contributor. The florist had the same note. The caterer had been told my business card would be provided after Christmas. The bridal salon was worse. Madison had selected a custom gown and told the consultant, Claire handles the financial side. She's weird about attention, but she always pays. By Friday, I had 21 screenshots, 6 vendor emails, 3 call notes, and 2 voicemails. Then Madison gave us the key. At 12:44 a.m., she texted from a new number. Stop acting broke. Grandma left you money anyway. Mom said you never deserved it because you were never grateful. I forwarded it to Nora. Her reply came 11 minutes later. Do not respond. This matters. On Monday, Nora called me at work. I was sitting in a conference room reviewing a restaurant arson claim when my phone buzzed. The room smelled like burnt coffee, dry erase markers, and the wool coat of the claims director sitting beside me. I stepped into the hallway. Claire, Nora said, your grandmother had a will. My hand tightened around the phone. The lake house was left to you, she continued. Not to your mother, not to Madison, to you. The hallway tilted. But it was transferred after Ruth died into a family trust controlled by your mother. The signature on the transfer authorization looks questionable. I am filing to obtain the full probate packet and title history. I stared through the office window at a delivery truck backing into the loading dock below. Its reverse alarm beeped steadily, absurdly normal. Nora's voice softened. Claire, listen carefully. Your family may have used your inheritance, your name, and possibly your identifying information to secure wedding credit. That moves this beyond ugly family behavior. What does it become? I asked. Potential fraud. There it was. The word was not dramatic. It did not crash through the ceiling. It simply landed on the floor between us and explained the shape of everything. I went back into the conference room and finished the arson review. I highlighted 2 invoice irregularities, asked for a bank subpoena, and made a note about a suspicious supplier with an IP login from 172.16.44.19. My voice did not shake, My hands did not tremble. That was when I understood something important. Pain had made me quiet. Evidence made me dangerous. Nora told me to let them keep talking. People who believe they own the room, she said, usually speak as if no one is recording. So I stopped blocking numbers and started archiving everything. My mother left voicemails that swung from sobbing to threats in under 30 seconds. My father texted that I had benefited from decades of family generosity, which apparently meant food, shelter, and being allowed to sleep indoors as a child. Aunt Denise posted vague Facebook updates about selfish people who forget where they came from. Madison sent voice messages filled with watery little breaths and phrases like, "My once-in-a-lifetime day," and "Why do you need to punish me for being loved?" I saved them all. The final dress-fitting invitation came on December 29th at 7:32 p.m. My mother texted, "You need to attend. This is your last chance to repair the damage." I ignored it. Madison sent a voice message 20 minutes later. "Claire, please. I know things got intense. I just want my sister there. The salon also needs your card on file before alterations, but we can talk about that privately. I love you." There it was, the hook under the ribbon. I replied with one sentence. "I will come to talk, not to pay." She sent a heart emoji. I stared at it until it looked like a warning label. The salon was called Wren and Vale Bridal, a marble-floored place on a street lined with boutiques and restaurants that charged $14 for soup. Inside, the air smelled like lilies, steam, and expensive fabric. Madison stood on a platform in a gown with lace sleeves and a train long enough to require its own traffic plan. My mother sat in a velvet chair, dabbing her eyes. My father stood near the champagne table with his arms crossed. Aunt Denise and two cousins hovered by the mirrors, ready to witness the prodigal bank account returning home. I wore a black wool coat and carried a red binder. The consultant approached with a tablet. "Ms. Bennett, we're so happy you're here. We just need to confirm the card for the alterations balance and gown protection plan." My mother smiled at the room. Claire has had a hard time accepting her role, but family always comes around. I opened the binder. "No," I said. "Family sometimes creates a paper trail." The room went still. My father took one step toward me. "Close that binder." I looked at the consultant. "Please note that I have never authorized payment for this dress, this wedding, or any related vendor. My attorney sent formal notice this morning to Laurel Ridge Estates, Wren and Vale Bridal, Blue Ridge Table Catering, and Maribel Stone Floral Design." The consultant's smile vanished. Madison's face went pale under the soft salon lights. "Why would you do that?" "Because my name is not your funding source." My mother stood. "How dare you embarrass us in public?" I turned one page. "This is an email from you to the venue listing me as primary financial contributor. This is a florist intake form where Madison wrote that I would provide a card by December 30th. This is a text from Madison referencing money Grandma left me. This is a bank statement showing withdrawals from my education trust marked for Madison's car, Madison's coaching, and Madison's engagement reserve." Aunt Denise whispered, "Elaine?" My mother ignored her. "Those were family decisions." "Family decisions don't usually require forged beneficiary paperwork." The word "forged" cracked the room open. My father lunged for the binder, but I stepped back and the consultant moved between us without thinking. Maybe she smelled danger. Maybe she smelled a lawsuit. Either way, she held the tablet to her chest like a shield. I closed the binder calmly. "Copies are already with my attorney," I said. "This one is just for the atmosphere." Madison began to cry then. Real tears or trained ones, I could not tell anymore. My mother put an arm around her and hissed that I was cruel. My father said I was unstable. Aunt Denise suddenly remembered she had parked at a meter. The consultant excused herself to call the salon owner. I walked out before anyone could rewrite the scene. 3 days later, my family escalated from manipulation to mistake. My manager, Kathleen, called me into her office at 10:18 a.m. Her blinds were half open, and the room smelled like coffee, paper, and the cinnamon gum she chewed when she was angry. A printed email lay on her desk. She turned it toward me carefully, as if it might cut both of us. It was from my mother. Elaine Bennett had written that I was emotionally unstable, harassing my sister, threatening the family wedding, and possibly under financial stress severe enough to misuse corporate resources. She included no evidence, because people like my mother confuse confidence with proof. Kathleen watched my face. "I don't believe this," she said, "but I needed you to know." I thanked her, walked to the restroom, locked myself in a stall, and shook so hard my teeth clicked. The fluorescent light hummed overhead. Someone washed their hands at the sink. The soap dispenser made a plastic squeak. Then the shaking stopped. That was the moment grief ended. Revenge began. I sent the email to Nora. Her reply was immediate. "This is actionable. Do you want to proceed?" I stared at that question for a full minute. Do you want? Not what does your mother want. Not what does Madison need. Not what keeps the peace. For the first time in my life, someone placed the decision in my hands and waited. I typed, "Yes." Within 24 hours, Nora sent cease and desist letters to my parents, Madison, Aunt Denise, and 2 cousins who had publicly accused me of fraud. She notified every vendor that I had no financial responsibility for the wedding. She filed a petition challenging the lake house transfer. She also referred the vendor documentation and my mother's email to a white-collar investigator she trusted. My parents responded exactly the way guilty people respond when paperwork appears. They got louder. My father left a voicemail saying, "You are suing your own mother over a house you don't even use?" My mother left one saying, "Grandma wanted the family to enjoy that place." Madison called from a blocked number and whispered, "Evan's parents are asking questions. Do you understand what you've done?" I did. For once, I understood perfectly. The public collapse began on January 6, when Aunt Denise tried to defend the family online and accidentally mentioned that the lake house morally belonged to Madison because she represents the family better. People noticed the word morally. Someone asked why morality was necessary if the title was clean. Someone else asked why a bride needed $93,700 from a sister she did not respect. Then the wedding website went down. Then Laurel Ridge released the date. Then the florist canceled the floral hold because no deposit arrived. Then Evan asked Madison, in front of both families during a menu tasting, whether my name had been used without permission. Madison said no. That was unfortunate for her because Nora had arranged for me to attend the tasting. The event was held at the Blue Ridge Conservatory, a glass-walled private dining room attached to a country club my parents adored because the staff pretended not to notice when members acted like minor royalty. The room smelled like rosemary, polished wood, and rain drying off wool coats. Servers moved silently between tables with tiny plates of trout, short rib, and pear salad. Evan's parents sat stiffly beside the fireplace. My mother wore winter white. My father wore his courtroom face, though he had never been a lawyer and had never won an argument that wasn't powered by volume. I arrived 12 minutes late on purpose. False surrender works best when everyone thinks you are tired. Madison saw me first and softened her face for the audience. "Claire," she said, "thank God. Can we please be adults now?" I placed the red binder on the table. My father's jaw tightened. "Not here." "Yes," I said, "here." Evan stood slowly. "What is that?" "Documentation." My mother laughed once, brittle and sharp. "Claire works in insurance. She thinks every family dinner is a fraud investigation." "Not every family dinner," I said. "Just the ones with forged vendor guarantees." The room quieted so completely, I heard a server set down a spoon near the kitchen door. Evan looked at Madison. "You said she agreed." Madison's eyes filled. "She was going to. Mom said she always comes around." "That is not agreement," Evan's mother said. I opened the binder to the first tab. These are emails from my mother listing me as the primary contributor without authorization. These are vendor notes referencing my card, my income, and one attempted use of the last 4 digits of my Social Security number. My father turned gray. I continued. These are statements from my education trust, which my grandmother funded for me. These withdrawals total $36,950 and correspond to expenses for Madison. These are probate filings showing my grandmother left me the lake house. These are transfer records moving the property into a trust controlled by my mother after Grandma's death. The signature has been referred for forensic review. My mother whispered, "Stop." I turned the final tab. And this is the email my mother sent to my employer, accusing me of being mentally unstable and financially dangerous after I refused to pay. Evan's father pushed his chair back. "Elaine, is this true?" My mother did what she always did. She reached for injury. Her hand went to her chest. Her eyes watered. Her voice dropped into that soft, wounded register that had trained half the family to apologize before understanding why. "I was trying to save my daughter's wedding." I looked at her. "You were trying to spend another daughter's life." Nobody spoke. Then the private dining room doors opened. Nora entered first, carrying a leather briefcase. Behind her came a Buncombe County deputy, a title investigator, and a federal postal inspector named Daniel Reyes, because one of the forged documents had been mailed across state lines to a lender in Greenville, South Carolina. There were no sirens, no dramatic music, just shoes on polished floor, quiet authority, and my mother's face realizing that volume would not work here. The deputy asked Elaine Bennett to step into the hallway. My father stood. "This is a family matter." Inspector Reyes looked at him with the tired patience of a man who had heard that sentence from better-dressed people in worse trouble. "Not anymore, sir." That was the federal hammer. It did not shout. It clicked. My mother was not handcuffed in the dining room, which disappointed a few cousins later more than they admitted. She was interviewed in the hall while my father paced and Madison sobbed into a linen napkin. But within 3 weeks, the investigation widened. The title transfer carried a notarization from a woman who had been in Florida on the date listed. The trust paperwork contained a signature from my grandmother dated 9 days after her hospitalization, when medical records showed she could not hold a pen. A vendor financing form included an electronic verification attempt tied to my mother's home IP address, 192.168.0.27. Paper remembered. The lake house was returned to me by court order in March. The education trust funds were not fully recoverable, but the settlement required my parents to repay $24,600 over 36 months. My mother's defamation email cost her another $18,000 and a written retraction to my employer. My father lost his seat on the Community Foundation Board after the title investigation became local gossip. Madison lost Evan when he learned his parents had been asked to co-sign a bridge loan based on money I had never promised. The wedding never happened. For months, my family tried to call the consequences excessive. My mother said Nora had manipulated me. My father said I had ruined their reputation. Madison posted one final statement online about betrayal, then deleted it after commenters asked whether betrayal meant not paying for peonies with stolen inheritance. By summer, everything was quiet. Real quiet, not the dining room silence that waits for someone to bleed. The lake house needed work. The porch sagged. The dock boards were soft in 2 places. The kitchen smelled like dust and old wood when I opened the door for the first time as the legal owner. But the morning light came through the green shutters exactly the way I remembered, touching the counter where Grandma Ruth used to set jars of peach jam. I stood there for a long time. I did not feel victorious in the way movies promise. I did not laugh at their downfall or dance through the empty rooms with a glass of champagne. What I felt was steadier than joy and cleaner than anger. I felt ownership, not just of the house, but of my own memory, my own labor, my own name. A month later, my mother asked to meet. I chose a coffee shop with cameras, witnesses, and a table near the door. The place smelled like espresso and toasted bagels. She arrived 10 minutes late, wearing sunglasses indoors. Her hair was perfect, but her hands looked older. For a while, she blamed stress. Then my father, then Madison's expectations. Then Grandma for creating division with the will. I listened without interrupting, because interruption gives people the comfort of a fight. Finally, she said, "I didn't think you would actually leave." I looked at her carefully.
"That was your mistake."
Her mouth trembled. "I thought family meant you would forgive anything." "No," I said. "Family means you don't ask someone to survive anything you do to them." She cried then, quietly this time. Maybe because she was sorry. Maybe because she was tired. Maybe because the world had finally stopped rearranging itself around her version of events. I did not offer my hand. I did not offer cruelty either. Some doors close without slamming. I still work in fraud analysis. I still back up everything twice. On clear mornings, I drive to the lake house before sunrise and drink coffee on the porch while mist lifts off the water. The dock still creaks. The pines still smell sharp after rain. Sometimes I think about the girl in the old birthday photo, standing near the kitchen door with a trash bag bigger than her body, believing usefulness might become love if she worked hard enough. I wish I could tell her the truth sooner. Love does not send invoices. Blood does not excuse theft. And family is not proven by how much you are willing to lose for people who never plan to protect you. My mother said I could pay for my sister's wedding or leave the family forever. She thought forever was the threat. She never understood it was the gift. The strangest part of rebuilding a life is how ordinary it looks from the outside. You buy new towels. You change the locks. You learn which floorboard squeaks outside the bedroom and which outlet only works if the kitchen light is on. No one applauds when you stop answering poison, and no orchestra plays when you sign the deed that should have been yours all along. But on the first night I slept in that house, rain hit the roof in soft silver taps. The refrigerator hummed like an old animal, and I woke at 3:12 a.m. without fear. For the first time since childhood, no one needed me to pay for peace. I was simply home. Before you go, tell me your age and where you are watching from in the comments. If this story made you think of someone who used love like a bill, subscribe to the channel, because sometimes the quietest person at the table is the one holding every receipt.